says we have to be engaging. It says that on the poster.
I've been getting lots of feedback in the kids already.
Thank you. That was a really nice introduction.
Yeah, it was super.
Thank you. All right, thank you all for coming. The Zajac Ranch, obviously a very important place. Thank you both for agreeing to do this. I've got a handful of different questions. We don't have a lot of time, so we're going to try and bounce through a whole bunch of different topics, and then hopefully take some questions from the crowd that Howard will be able to help us facilitate. But maybe we can just jump right into it. So obviously, as Howard was saying, the success of Lululemon was massive, which is, put you guys in the situation of being one of Canada's wealthiest families. And it seems to me, from the outside looking in, as I was digging, kind of preparing to ask you some questions, it seems like you're deploying capital into commercial real estate, private equity investments, of course, apparel again, and philanthropy. And I figured we could chat about a few of those things, but maybe we could jump right into the first one, which was real estate, if you didn't mind. Turns out your company, Low Tide Properties, is my company's new landlord. You guys just bought the building that we're in Kitsilano on 4th there, 4th and U. And so I don't know much about Low Tide except for what I saw on the website, but I thought maybe we'd start with what's the strategy or what's the plan with Low Tide? Why are you deploying capital through Low Tide into commercial real estate?
Sure. I mean, part of it is, ever since we came from nothing, and you've heard that story many times before, people that have done that. So, ever since the day we had $10 together, people kept saying, diversify, diversify, diversify. And if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't diversify anything. But here we are today. We sold down from Lululemon and we started putting money into real estate and into some other ventures. But our focus has always been on the 32-year-old single professional. And in real estate, it's specific to where they live, how they move around, where they work, how they work out, how they eat, all that. So we're very, very focused on that. We find and it goes right from our athletic companies right into our real estate.
Cool.
And I would just add too that our love of real estate really comes from our love of Vancouver. And both of us, we were talking earlier, both Chip and I are implants from the prairies out to Vancouver. And recognizing that it's such a unique and special city, unique and special landscape. And for us, getting involved in real estate was really a chance to participate in that. And we build communities in the neighborhoods that we invest in, and we're long-term holders of our real estate properties. We're not there to flip it. And so we become really a part of the communities.
Is there specific neighborhoods that you're, from the outside looking in, looks like Kitsilano, Gastown, Mount Pleasant, where I see the Low Tide trucks driving around, but is there a method to the madness, areas you like, you don't like?
Yeah, I mean, we are looking at places that are developing where that 32-year-old single professional can kind of move into and have that kind of ambiance, I guess, of coolness. But then on the not a flip side, but the same side is our incredible partners, and Dan Turner is here from PCI, who are the world's experts at building on subway stations. And we have 2 subway stations, which we have about 10 properties around Thornton. Where would that be? Like where Emily Carr is, and then also where VCC is. So that strip there is like phenomenal, and we think it's going to shift downtown from where it is, over Gastown and then into that area.
That's what St. Paul's is moving in there, right?
Yeah, they're moving a little to the north. Yeah, it's all called the Flats. We're on the South Flats. The hospital would be on the North Flats, and it's going to, and I think there's going to be, at the end of the day, there's going to be soccer fields and playgrounds and parks and everything in that area. Maybe even built over the railroad tracks. It's going to be a phenomenal area.
Nice. And when you guys are, dealing with Low Tide, are you going into the offices deciding on which properties to purchase and what to do, or do you have the team kind of managing it for you? Like how involved in the day-to-day of Low Tide are you?
Well, I mean, there's a team of, over 60 people at Low Tide that do the heavy lifting. We and manage the day-to-day. Chip and I are involved in more of the neighborhood selection and that part of the acquisition of it, and love being a part of the creative planning for the new communities, new builds, and are heavily involved in the work going on in the flats.
I think everything I learned about real estate was playing my 10,000 hours of Monopoly between the ages of 6 and 12. So,
so I'd be like remiss if we didn't, or if I didn't ask if Low Tide has a way or a plan of, like, housing affordability is obviously a problem. They talk about it. It seems like every major city has some sort of housing affordability issue. Does Low Tide think about this, have a way to help solve some of it? Is there a strategy there that Low Tide is involved with making housing more affordable?
well, our focus has really been on offices in Vancouver. So only because we're now on the subway stops, and it makes sense to have high density on subway stops to help pay for the subways, are we looking at that. And they will be rental, and I think that the city does have a plan or a zoning where part of it is more affordable than others. But I would say if I had my effort, it would be more on asking and kind of pushing the government to more of a free enterprise solution to that, where take away the 2% increase in rent every year and let things go to market. And then I think the city would and the province would get built what they need to get built. There's not enough supply because of that one thing, I believe.
Yeah, so just removing the rent restrictions.
Right.
Right. That's interesting. So it's always a hot topic, the rent restrictions.
Yeah, you're not allowed to say
I
that.
was gonna
Yeah, I
say,
know you're not allowed to say
somebody
that.
It's kind of quiet. Everybody's just shushing. So maybe sort of switching gears into, well, sort of on the real estate topic, but talking about the family and kids. January is always BC assessments time. Everybody gets their BC assessment, and then the whole province gets to know what your house is worth. And it's always in the media as, it's the Wilsons, have the most expensive house in the province, and blah, blah. It's literally every year they seem to do it when assessments come out. You guys end up having your house on the front page. But with that kind of publicity, there's lots of wealthy families in Vancouver. I went to school with some kids that were wealthy, but I found like some of them didn't really know like how wealthy their parents actually were. But it seems like in your case, it's everywhere. They talk about Lululemon, they talk about the companies, they talk about the house. Like how do you manage the children with them being there's wealth there, but like also knowing to the level that they seem to have access to all of the information about what's exactly going on in your world. How do you manage the children with that?
You want to try? Okay. Well, I mean, it hasn't been a challenge, quite frankly. I think we're very down-to-earth prairie people, and we're out in Vancouver. There is something very unique about us that hasn't happened to other wealthy families, in that A, we had a brand, which everyone knows the brand. 2, we went public. So if anyone had told me, that when we went public, like all our finances would be out in the public, I might have thought differently about it. I wish I had, but that didn't happen. So this is what we've got, and we can't hide from it. So we don't try to hide from it on any kind of level. With our boys, we're wide open about our finances, the will, where the money's coming from, but we also know that their lives would be miserable if they weren't left with creativity and the desire, with the challenge in life and the desire to be something back to their community. And so I think that's how we live. I think kids look at their parents and go try to mimic them, and we try not to be ostentatious, but where our ostentatious comes from is, I'm 67 now, there's no point in dying with any money. If I can spend some money, I'm gonna do it now. So I think the boys kind of get to tag along on things like that. I am concerned they've seen too much of the world, and they don't have a desire to do that, because I know that was a big driver for me, to work hard. I wanted to see what the world looked like. I think, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Honey, do you have anything?
I would just add that, for Chip and I, our grounding foundation, we both grew up as competitive swimmers, and that seemed to set in us a set of discipline and rigor to our day and our lives. And that foundation is something we've shared with our kids. And just for anybody, we have 5 boys, and they range in age from 33 to the youngest 2 are twins, are 17. And so we set in place this scheduling and rigor to their lives as well too. And we have a strong foundation of goal setting. And it was something both Chip and I brought into our marriage. It's something that we shared. It's a foundation of our businesses, and it's been a foundation of our family. And that, you know, I set goals for myself, Chip sets his own individual goals, all the boys do, and then we collectively have a family goal, like what are we up to achieving as a family? And I think we have found success in together collectively deciding that we're up for something bigger than just ourselves seems to be a real great place for us to ground ourselves in.
And the goal setting has been important to us. We hold it as the functional top of it, but underneath it we have 3 pillars, and one of them is from the book Good to Great, and it's what's your big, hairy, audacious goal? And then number 2 is there's an hour of 8 hours with the Psychology of Achievement by Brian Tracy on why people do and do not set goals, and where they, mostly people don't like to fail, and secondly, they don't like to not look good. And we really talk a lot about this thing about, as human beings, most of us walk around trying to look good and not really being authentic or being ourselves. So by failing at 50% of our stretch goals, you kind of give up on looking good. And I think that's been really good for our children. And then the third part of it is from the Landmark Forum, really teaching the fundamentals of what integrity is, responsibility, what complaining is, and what it is to be in full choice about being in a goal or to being in a goal. So in other words, setting a goal from the future, not from the experiences of our past. Because if we do it from our past, then we just get incremental increases, where if we set it from an unknown future, then we can create anything we want.
It's awesome. The Landmark Forum is a thing that keeps coming up in everything that I keep reading about you guys is the Landmark Forum. One of the things I did read talked about how you guys have a team of advisors and you have family retreats and you do like legacy planning and stuff like that. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
Let me go again?
Yeah, you start.
Well, just
I said to Stephen that, you know, he asked a question and that I usually let you answer first because I have a longer processing time, and so will you go? I'm working on it, so go.
Great. She's smarter than I am, and I know you fill in, so thank you very much. Just coming up in 2 weeks from now, we're going down to Utah. We bring our trustees down, and we bring our advisory committee. There's about 6 or 7. We bring down our family, and then we have a family coach advisor for multi-generational transfer of, I guess, power would be one, kind of like the Godfather transferred power to his son. And then the other part is, you know, how
His favorite one.
Which one's great?
4 of them. No. So it's quite a process. It's this whole family office thing really only started up around 25 years ago, and it's we work with a company out of New York called Landsberg, LGA anyway, and the science of passing on power and money to multiple generations so that they are, exactly like I said before, responsible, challenged, and you know, want to raise their families in the best way that they possibly can. There's a science to it, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah, and one of the, this won't be a surprise to anybody that is in a relationship or a family of any sort, is that the key is communication, is what, you know, the big takeaway for us consistently is. And so, you know, what the LGA company does and their advisors is really has supported us and created a roadmap for us as our kids have aged and we go through different stages of wanting to hand off various parts of responsibilities of the business to the kids, is going, what's age stage appropriate to communicate to them, and a little bit of guidelines of how to do that, and what the experts are that we may need to bring in to help with those conversations.
Yeah, one of the things that we really got is we had to teach the kids financial literacy right off the bat. So we've been doing them since they were probably in grade 6. We've had to learn. I mean, we're really brand creative people, and like accounting is like, you know, you might as well scratch our eyeballs out. So
I know they're learning about mortgages, and I was like, just wait, let's break down that mortgage calculator again. Anyway, so it's been helpful for all of us.
So one of the things that advice we got was not, as we pass on a little bit of money at the time and see how they do with a little bit, and then we give them a little bit more and a little bit more. But it's just not a matter of seeing their challenges around it and how calm they are around it, and much better with money than we are, I think, to a great extent. But also there's Kristen Hansen's down here who we also got the advice to have a financial advisor attached to each one of the children. And of course it's good for the financial advisor because eventually all our kids will probably end up being wealthy in their own right, and to have and to kind of come along with that with a financial advisor who then can, you know, put in a lot of hours at the beginning when there's not much money there, but can kind of see something in the long run is good for everybody. Our boys are really solid because of that one piece of advice.
That's great. There's like two sort of pieces of this. I was reading, Shaquille O'Neal says to his kids, in order to touch daddy's cheese, you got to have 3 degrees. So essentially he's forcing his children to get 3 degrees or they just can't have his money. Apparently he constantly says, you guys aren't rich, I'm rich. You're not rich. It's just interesting to see how like the ultimatum he's put out there for his children. The other one is Warren Buffett and Bill Gates with the whole giving pledge of like giving away the vast majority of the wealth, and that sounds like you guys are going down a bit of a different path of structuring it around the kids and having a sort of a long-term plan for them to be able to manage it.
Well, I think the U.S. tax situation is a little bit different, and I think, you know, we don't have the estate tax that the Americans have, so I think things are done differently. However, we get to pay lots of tax through our lives. How fortunate for us. I really like this kind of mantra by the Iroquois Indians around working for the 7th generation, and we talk to a lot of our kids about that, about, you know, we've made some money and we're passing some of it to you, and then we're passing kind of a big bucket to you too, but the big bucket is always thinking about 7 generations down. And you guys have been lucky to get like a great education, great health, and then, you know, create these challenges in this personal development program that we have, that we think we raise great family members. And how the challenge that you have is, how can you make that work for 7 generations down? What kind of decisions do you make that aren't short-term but are long-term? Everything that you do. And I think that's been probably our strength, is that we're very long-term driven in everything that we do, and it's been...
we use the word a lot of like stewardship with our kids, and whether it be how we plan our estate plan, or the businesses we get involved in, or the philanthropy we get involved in, it really is driven by this long-term 7 generations out, and that, you know, Chip and I see ourselves as stewards unto our children, and that our children are then stewards unto their children, and we spend a lot of time talking about this as a family, so that nobody feels that they have a right or an ownership to something, but really you're allowing the energy, the money, the environment, whatever's happening around you to pass through you, and that you will try to pass it on to the next generation better than you found it.
That's great. I see, like, my son goes to Vancouver College. Some of your boys went to Vancouver College. It's not lost on a bunch of people that they see Chip out there with the reflector vest on, holding the stop sign, doing traffic duty, that you could easily pay. I think you pay $700 check to the school and you can opt out of it. But I think it's good for everybody to see, and your kids to see, that no, it's like I'm part of this community. I'm not going to buy my way out of it, even though I could.
He He does it for the accessory. I think
Yeah.
he is.
But no, you know, but I mean, I think this is important, and I thank you for that, and it is a little bit of a joke, and I know exactly the message I'm sending. But it's also because my parents were that type of people, and I watched them, and they helped at the swimming club, they helped at all the events, like they didn't have money, so maybe they kind of, that was part of what they had to do in order to have me do what I needed to do. But you know, it's, again, I'm going to say it, that children mimic their parents.
Totally. So switching gears again, can we talk a little bit about the Amber Sports? So your company, Hold It All, maybe if you guys want to explain it, but you basically got Arc'teryx, but if you can explain how it all came to be, that you're back in the apparel business and what Amber Sports is all about.
Well, we didn't get Arc'teryx altogether, but when we started Lululemon in 1998, around 2003, 2004, I looked across the water and I saw this company, Arc'teryx, and we all know, we're all Vancouverites. I mean, that's the best. Actually, I'm wearing the Valence, one of their suit today. One of
I
these.
was asked if I could ask you what you're wearing today. I'll find a way to ask the question.
Yeah, and I've never been able to wear a suit before, but it's got stretch in it. I can sit down and feel comfortable. I love it.
It's Arc'teryx?
Yeah, it's Valence, which is a kind of a sub-street brand of Arc'teryx. Yeah. So, you know, I think as we parted ways with Lululemon, and not very well, because we, you know, I think it's, you know, we were creative types looking 5 years in the future, and we ended up with a, you know, as most boards do, you know, boards that want to protect the shareholders' money and are, you know, are kind of scared to be as innovative as probably we are. So that didn't work out very well. So as we exit, and I think we spent about 5 years looking at, geez, I wish I could, I love that Arc'teryx, I love it, I love it, I love it. And so we actually hired a banker to go look at Arc'teryx, and just 2 weeks later, this Chinese company, Anta, which is kind of the Nike of China, made an offer on it with a private equity firm out of Hong Kong. And so we got some help from RBC and a guy named Dave Bustos. I don't know if Dave's in here, he usually is. But, you know, to help us make like, how can we partner with them? So I think they saw Arc'teryx as being the crown jewel inside of a company that had Solomon and skis and running shoes, and Atomic and Peak Performance, and Wilson Balls out of Chicago, for anyone that watched the Super Bowl last night. And so this is like six of the top outdoor brands in the world. And so we were able to buy into 20% of that deal, and it's a phenomena. I mean, we know everything about technical apparel, and Chairman Ding from Anta in China knows everything about running shoes. And so we're kind of divested ourselves of a few of the digital equipment businesses, which we don't really understand or do very well. And so we're in it every day. We attend design meetings. We run the brand product committee for Amherst. So we travel the world, notwithstanding a year we missed through COVID, but we still did a lot. And we get in there, and our goal was, these brands were all, like Arc'teryx, they were all male-driven engineering doing wholesale. And so our idea then is to put the Lululemon model to it, where it's women's, it's direct to consumer, and we build out a spring-summer line. And we've actually put, I would say, the top 6 executives from Lululemon now are in Arc'teryx. So it's going to be a rocket ship.
Yeah, it's a really exciting combination, you know, between Chip's experience of North American heavy retail, but vertical retailing, design and product driven, in combination with Anta that has such a strong Asian background and experience, shoes, and more logistics and manufacturing. So together, the relationship is quite interesting, and the respect for each other's strengths is really what's driving the success of the company right now.
Yeah, and just to give you an idea, Anta has a warehouse. It's 25 football fields big, and they have 4 of them in China. And they have 20,000 stores. And their ability, they licensed Fila and built out 1,500 stores in under 4 years. Like, it's just, like, what's happening here, it just pales to comparison. So I feel very fortunate to be in business with them. They're very, very astute, very smart, and we're having a really good time.
Yeah, well, I was reading a bit about it, and Summer, you were the original designer at Lululemon, right? And it sounds like what you guys are doing is you're going back into this other company, this machine with many companies, and applying what you know from that technical apparel into some of those brands. Because I read somewhere it said the customers aren't buying the quality, the clothing quality that matches the quality of some of the equipment and things that come out of some of these brands. Is that right? You're involved in trying to add this apparel layer on top of some of the other brands, or are you specifically driving into Arc'teryx?
Well, I think if you look at Wilson, for instance, you'd go in and they have the #1 selling racket in the world, you know, through Federer and Serena Williams, and yet if you went into a pro shop, it was the worst clothing you'd ever seen. So, you know, for us, it was like, how can you have like the best quality racket and the worst quality clothing? It didn't kind of match up. So you'll see over the next 3-4 years where you'll be, you know, looking at the US Open or the Australian Open, and you'll start seeing Wilson being the top technical apparel in tennis.
Yeah, and what Chip is saying is true for a lot of those brands that are now in that AMR group, in that they were male-led. Product and design wasn't at the forefront of what they were trying to do. They were being kind of led astray a little bit by the wholesale demands. They got over-assorted with product, too much, and too much of it not good. And so what we've really gone in is looked at the line plans, streamlined the product, gone back, re-looked at the composition of the design and product team, and even the manufacturing process itself, and trying to, in an effort to clean it all up and better serve the customer with better quality too.
That's amazing. And will you bring some of that back into the Vancouver area, or did you have to fly to go and do this because the teams are elsewhere overseas?
Yeah, I mean, we like going where they are. I mean, you know, Annecy, France, and, you know, like Salzburg, Austria, a bad place to hang out. Stockholm, you can talk me into going there for a couple days. You know, I think we've always flown and been a very global company, you know, family. This is our 3rd global, you know, apparel company. So it seems natural to us.
Keeping track of time here, switching gears again. The Wilson 5 Foundation is very active, it seems, in its giving both around the world and locally. But maybe Summer, you were just in Ethiopia end of last year?
I was in Ethiopia mid-November.
Yeah. Can you explain what was that all about? Why?
Yeah, sure. So I'm thinking about 15 years now, we've had an organization called Imagine One Day. And the idea behind it is building schools in Ethiopia, and not just schools, but the schools, in order to be sustainable for these communities, they had to have income generation, so it might be animal fattening or tree growing for fruit-bearing trees. All the schools had to have a latrine, and a separate one for males and females, otherwise the girls weren't allowed to attend school, and clean drinking water, because for a lot of young girls, that's their job in these really remote communities, is to go collect the water. So if they were able to collect the water while at school, their parents were more apt to let the girls go to school. I think we have about, over the 15 years, built about 950 schools, 80 of them purely Imagine One Day schools, the total being some of them partner schools that we do with UNICEF or other like organizations. And we've put about 102,000 roughly kids through our Imagine One Day schools. What's interesting about the organization, I think what's had it be so outstanding in this pace and rate that we've been able to affect change, is at the core of it, similar to our companies that we work with, is a program called Light Your Leadership, and it's a personal development course that's all about goal setting and accountability. And so we typically have gone every year to run this program. And what's incredibly unique about it is in Ethiopia to have, you know, a school administrator sitting next to a student, sitting next to one of the political leaders. It's unheard of. There's a lot of hierarchy in the communities there. And so to have such a wide range group of people sitting together for 3 days, learning about goal setting and communicating is unbelievable. So we've typically done it every year because of the pandemic and COVID. This was our first time in 3 years being able to get together with our teams there. And it was really incredible seeing people that, you know, had missed each other seeing in person, and the teams had grown. They hadn't had a chance to be together. So it was an unbelievable trip, and I got to bring my friend Michelle, who's here today. And so whenever we've gone, we've tried to bring family or friends as a way to kind of share what we're doing and bring back the stories back to North America. It's so far. People go, what are you doing all the way over in Ethiopia? And how does that affect me? And how does that affect my world? And I go, gosh, if we can make a difference for young boys and girls out there in a world that we don't even know about, I know for sure we're just making the world a better place.
It was really amazing. What was it like? Why Ethiopia?
I know, that's a good question. You know, it's interesting. When Chip and I first went public with Lululemon, we recognized it was going to be important for us to give, and not just what do they call it, the pay and spray, spray and pay. And we thought, let's be really thoughtful. What matters to us? What's important to us? What's aligned with our values? And we knew it was something to do with education. We knew kids were where we could really make a big difference. And we spent a lot of time talking to different people involved in those areas. And it turned out that Ethiopia was where we could financially make the biggest difference. And the government at the time had passed sort of a, what was it? It wasn't.
Well, yeah, they pay almost 50% of the budget into
But they
rebuilding
had
schools.
made a 2030 goal.
Oh, with UNICEF,
with
yes,
UNICEF.
50% of the kids under the age of 10, I think, would be in school.
Yeah. And so with our organization and the vision, we were really lined up with the Ethiopian vision and goal for their own country, and we went, great, this is where we can really accelerate the change.
It's amazing. So I know we're running out of time, right, Howard?
Yeah, I think this is phenomenal. We'd like to keep it going, but I thought, well, we have a few minutes left. Is there anyone, if you want to put up your hand, I'll come to you. I'm going to come all the way over to the back and let you ask a question here of the Wilsons.
I got one more question, Howard, while you're walking over.
Okay.
So I was just getting to the BC Parks. You guys donated a bunch of money locally, not just Ethiopia. You've done a lot of the art around town, Kwantlen, but you recently donated $100 million to the BC Parks Foundation. So I was love to know, like, why? Not that it's a bad idea; it's a great idea. But why did you do that? And how does it work? How does that money benefit British Columbia?
Well, I'm going to go back to Imagine One Day, and I think this is important for a lot of people to get. We got into it, and of course, Imagine One Day, we ended up merging it with We. And then the whole Trudeau Liberal government fiasco where they threw We under the bus and et cetera, et cetera. So we ended up taking Imagine One Day back. We spent so much time on governance at Imagine One Day. I mean, the reality of it was that if we just went to work, and we could have made more money to give to the Ethiopian people rather than running Imagine One Day. That's about true. And so we really started to look at, man, we have all these businesses going. We are so good at making money, and we know that we pay our tax, and we know that we employ thousands and thousands of people, and we know that every time we sell some shares, we put a whole bunch of money into a foundation to lower our tax, so we have this there. We really want something that solved the issue of no governance and it was going to be a forever legacy. So we wanted to put it into parks because we believe in movement of people, and we felt that parks were available for everybody and they were there forever.
It is the largest private donation in Canadian conservation history, is what I was told.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. Well, it was in the newspaper, so it's gotta be
It
true.
must be true.
So can you just explain quickly, how does the donation work? Do the BC Parks people find a chunk of land and then you fund it, or they've already got the money and they can just go and invest and purchase land?
Well, yeah, Andy's there, of course. If anyone wants to participate with Andy, he's here today in the plaid shirt. They're up front. Really, like every philanthropist, you want to double, triple your money. So we gave them the money and went, look at, use our name, find pieces of property, we'll put in 50% of it, and then you go find people that want to match us, so to speak, so that we can, spread it around a little bit. So so they go around and they find particular pieces of property that one we know we can never get back. They may be like the Englishman River Delta. It could be like something up on the Fraser River that's a sandbar that you can never get back for the salmon. It could be, I know that they're looking at 4 million acres up in North BC, to work with First Nations. So we'll buy out the forestry and mining rights. The First Nations will run it as a park for perpetuity. And so all the contracts that are around that. That's not there yet, but I think we're going to hear that announcement pretty soon.
Unbelievable, that's amazing. Sorry,
All right.
Howard's staring at me in the corner there.
What's your name?
Minami.
Nanami, what's your question?
So, I'm a young entrepreneur and I'm starting a clothing brand as well, but my question is, how could I focus on community and what steps can I take to actually building the community? Because my goal is to help people who are raised in single mother households to become more financially literate and escape the pattern of poverty.
Well, first off, you're starting off it looks like the charity is the number one part of it, rather than, I think you have to have great product. So you can have a great social mission, but if you don't have a great product, people won't buy it and it's all gonna go down. So I wouldn't, I'd think a lot about that. I think that where we really did well with community is knowing we didn't have any money. So we had to engage the community, and we engaged athletes. And I think there's a great book out, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, The Tipping Point, but finding out who your tribe is, who's going to talk about your brand and be really excited about it, because you don't probably have a lot of money. So you need to have other people talk for you. And so who are they, how do you engage them, and then how do you you maybe provide some clothing to them, ask them to test it, not be sponsored, not give it away, but actually it's got to be a quid pro quo so they feel invested in the growth and success of your company.
I'm the fishing lodge guy. Also involved in rugby, so anything to do with rugby and fishing is kind of my thing. But I just, we have a mini rugby program at UBC Ravens Rugby Club on the west side, and I just thought I'd put in sort of the plug that if you're ever thinking of getting off to mini rugby apparel and gear and into the rugby type of clothing wear stuff, I'm the guy you want to talk to. That's it. Cheers. Just thought I'd say hi.
Waiting for Chip to say, end your question.
And you can comment back.
Yes.
All right, last question for you guys. If there was one thing you could change about Vancouver, what would it be?
Well, we have an excellent mayor. Yeah, I mean, we have, yeah. I mean, how lucky are we to get an entrepreneur business person that's knows HR, organizational structure, strategy, can put out a long-term vision. It's such a relief. You know what? There's so many things when I talk to Ken about what we want to do for the future of Vancouver, and yes, you've already said it. The art, actually, I think he's going to figure out the downtown east side. I think because Ken trounced the NDP left so badly in the civic election, Eby came on, I think he panicked and actually was starting to give the people what we wanted to actually do. And so I think we're going to see some real help around psychiatric hospitals. And I think that, we're very vested in Gastown, and we think it's the most beautiful part of the city. And it really deserves all people down there, from the residents to the SROs to the businesses to the restaurants, all deserve and can live in harmony. But right now, we're out of control. And Ken, I think, has brought in 100 nurses, 100 new policemen, but I don't think that's going to be it. I think it's going to be his ability to work with the NDP government for the big solve. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, I won't get too negative about what I would want to change, because I really love Vancouver. I would just add that I hope that I find Canadians in Vancouver, in particular, tend to downplay stuff, and we get a little bit small about the success. But I just want to continue for Vancouver to celebrate the success stories that have come out of this city. And I sometimes feel we don't highlight it enough. And whether it's the clothing like Arc'teryx or Lulu or Aritzia, or that legacy of athletic clothing that's been born out of such an incredibly beautiful, rugged city. But I just want to make sure that whether it be high tech or some of the bio research that's been born out of Vancouver, that we really continue to value and celebrate that, because it's that entrepreneurship spirit and the ability for people that feel like they can start businesses here is so important to our community and the success of the community. So I think in order to highlight it and support the successes, we'll continue to see generations of new ideas coming out.
Yeah, can I say one more thing? Yeah. I look at these city reports about, most livable cities in the world, and I keep looking down and I go, I don't care if there's nightclubs here. I don't care if there's theater. I don't care if there's things like that to do. I appreciate all that.
You like the no fun city?
I like the no fun city. People don't realize we live on the West Coast. The sun goes down at 10, 11 o'clock at night in the summertime, where you're not going to want to be in a restaurant or a club. You're going to want to be active. You're going to want to be outside. You're going to be moving. We are not the East Coast, where sun goes down at 5 o'clock and they've got nothing else to do. We're not Asia. We're the last place on earth, other than I'd say Northwest Australia, to be civilized, and we've got something super special here, and the world wants it. And let's not give in to what these other people think we should be.
Yeah. Thank you both very much for doing this.
Yeah, I want to thank Stephen. Thank you so much for being our moderator today, Stephen Jagger. Really appreciate it. Summer and Chip, thank you for giving your time, your talent, and your treasure today to us. It's been a wonderful experience to hear more from you up close in person, and we hope we'll have you back again. Please give it up for our wonderful guests.